way since 1966, and we did it really by copying the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King, because it was big news when black people sat in to be served at Woolworth's counters. I was active in those in 1959 in Austin, Texas, at the University of Texas to interview Woolworth's lunch counter. So through activism, we were copying them. He mentioned that this was called a sit-in, but black people had all types of places that they could object to, they were excluded from. But the center of gay life in those days, you didn't have community centers, you had a bar culture, which now is greatly diminished because we've been so assimilated we hardly we have community centers now in groups, but it's not so much emphasis on bars. But it's very important because the legislation said that bars could not allow homosexuals either to be served, but worse yet, to gather. In other words, 4 homosexuals standing in the back of your bar, not even drinking, would violate the rules. So we were denied the right of assembly, we were denied the right of accommodation, and when the New York Times put this term on it, sip-in, he's absolutely right, it was a diminishing way of dismissing our community. I was active in Mattachine since 1958, and in 1963, after I'd broken into radio, there was a New York Times article, and it simply said, R.H. Wicker calls for acceptance of homosexuals as legitimate minority group. We were not thought of as a minority. I used to go out and have to argue with sociology to explain to people why we were a minority. Now, we've come a long ways, but let me tell you, the thing that's amazing to me is 3 things. One is how quickly things can change. I never dreamed I lived to see the day that we had gay marriages written up in the New York Times, and the gay community was recognized as a viable, important part of society. We'd have people like Pete Buttigieg serving in national office and considered possible candidates for the presidency. But I would remind you, too, that in Germany, you had the great progress going on from 1896 to 1932, and then Hitler came in, they burned the gay libraries, they burned down the center, and so history can go backwards as quickly as it can go forwards. And unfortunately today we really are up to our mettle, because I think it's one of those times that we risk going back 50 years just as fast as we came ahead 50 years. So I would urge all of you to get involved. Now, something I've been doing, it's hard to get your friends to do it. They have a Republican senator. Tell them to call the Republican senator who they hated, who they didn't vote for, but call them and tell them my 401k has gone down so much. I can't live like this. What are you doing? Because that will count for more. So many of us, like me in Jersey, live in a totally blue state. There isn't any Republican I can complain to, so I have to call my friends in Pennsylvania and try to explain to them, yes, call. It doesn't know, you don't know who you voted for. Just tell them they've got to stop all this stock market crashing, all this nonsense that's going on. So let's all get active, because it's up to you to keep your place in society and to keep from going back, because you certainly don't want to go back to the days that I went back to. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you. Yeah!
We want to hear.
Yeah.
Let's hear you.
Oh. Wait, John, do you want to say something? Okay, then Lucy could say something. Okay.
I just want to say, I grew up in Philadelphia, and this is the first gay bar I ever knew about, because I'd read about it in the Village Voice, and when I'd sneak up as a teenager to New York, I could walk by the windows and see maybe I could go in, maybe I can't. And then it was in Boys in the Band. There's a scene that opens up the movie Boys in the Band. And I was like, it was as good as seeing the Empire State Building to me, because that confirmed to me that it was the gay establishment. But I want to pay homage to this gentleman by tying that movement that liberated you to the civil rights movement. Because right now we're going through a very difficult time, and so many people were liberated by the effort of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement. And now we're the vilified party. I'm a gay man, I'm probably being gay, I'm probably being African American, but now the battle is in your camp. My friends are writing me and asking me, I didn't see any African Americans in the march or whatever. We're really tired because we helped liberate the women's movement, the handicap movement, and the gay movement. And now we're the vilified party. And it's now time for you to fight for not only your rights, but a freedom that New York offers that's not offered around the rest of the country. And this was a place, and it looks exactly the way it did when I first came here, except for the Basset Hound bar rail that's gone.
Poor Helen.
Bring him back!
Bring back the bar rail. It was a wonderful, wonderful. You should put at least one section up so people can see it. It's really beautiful. Basset. Anyway, enjoy. The fight never ends. Good luck.
Thank you. John Reddick is a preservationist, as we all are on our project. So he speaks very eloquently about the preservation of the Basset Hounds. I also want to tie that to Lucy, who was the author of that reporter for that article, and say a few words of what you were doing at the time. But before I go down from my perch, if you want, you could look more about our project. There are QR code little coasters around. Donate. We're doing this, with blood, sweat, and tears, and it's really
losing
important.
our federal funding, by the way.
Right, no more federal funding. So we're a small team that does this work, but really learn more. We have almost 500 sites that we've documented, and it's not just about LGBTQ history. It's really to show the community's influence on American culture and how influential we are in every aspect of this country. So Lucy.
Thank you. I was assigned the assignment as somebody who wrote about civil rights. It was a civil rights story. That was in '66. In '62, I had taken a leave from college for 1 year and went to Mississippi and became editor of the Mississippi Free Press from September '62 to August '63, coming back conveniently to stop at the March on Washington in August of '63. And I was writing then about civil rights, labor rights. I would go on to write a lot about women's rights. In 1970-71, I was a national vice president of NOW, the National Organization for Women. So this was really part of my civil rights interest and reporting, and that's how the Village Voice saw it. And it certainly became part of the civil rights movement in this country. So the point you're making, is quite right. And I think that's how people see it. And it wasn't my assignment. It was an assignment to me. Nobody called me and said to go there because I didn't know about it. So it's interesting and gratifying to know that it had some impact, because I didn't know that it would. To some extent, but maybe it did. Certainly, it wasn't like the snarky New York Times and other mainstream media. But we know they're still pretty snarky today about all kinds of issues. So plus ça change. So thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure after all these years to have something to look back on that may have had some effect.
Thank you.
Thank you!
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Michael and Kyle. Gay Bars That Are Gone does a great tour of bars around the New York City area. When do you do it again?
June 7th. Be there.
June 7th. So if you want to learn more, they're up front here. And if you want to learn more about our project, please do so by scanning the QR code. But thank you all for coming, and we'll see you at the 60th. And we'll retrace the steps.